Of course, there may be a time where we want to test multiple different conditions and apply certain code based on those conditions. Suppose that we want to calculate the shipping cost for a company for their customers' online orders. Well, this is the shipping charges, or this represents the shipping charges that the company offers. If a customer spends $150 or more, shipping is free. $149.99 and $100, their shipping is $7.99. Between $99.99 and $50, the shipping is $5.99. And then below $50, the shipping is $4.99. So how can we create conditional statements to represent this shipping order? In your Google Drive folder, you should see a file called shipping.html, and if you don't see it, email me. And this is what it currently looks like in the browser. We just have an H1 that says calculate shipping, and then a button, enter total purchase. Or total purchase, yeah. So when the user clicks the button, they're going to enter the total amount that they purchased, and then based on how much that is, we want to tell them how much their shipping costs are, okay? So let's get started. We're going to use JavaScript for this. Oh, let me back up just a little bit. Notice that we have a paragraph here with the ID para. We're going to write some content to the inside of that paragraph. And our button has the ID button. We'll need to know both of those things. Okay, let's add some script tags. And we're going to create a function called calcShip. Remember, all of the code associated with our function must be inside a set of curly brackets. We want to prompt the user for the total amount of that purchase. Now, the total amount of their purchase could be a decimal number, and we may want to do math with that later on. So let's parse that. I'm going to store it in a variable called total, and we'll parse float for a decimal number. And that is a method in and of itself. So we have our function, we have a set of parentheses, and then we have our prompt function, our method, and that's where we enter the prompt message. Don't forget that semicolon. Okay, based on what amount the user enters, we need to have a separate variable to store how much the shipping is. So whether it's $4.99, whether it's $5.99, whether it's $7.99, or whether it's free. So let's create a variable, but we're not going to initialize it. We'll call it ship cost. Okay, so there's different ways that you could approach this. You could start at 150 and do the code for free, or you could start at the lower end and work your way up. And that's just the way I chose to do it. But it's all about how you write your conditions. It would work either way as long as your conditions were written correctly. Okay, so I'm going to say if total is less than $50. So I don't have to put a dollar sign. I don't have to put any decimals there. If it is less than $50, that means it's going to be $49.99 or below. Let's add our set of curly brackets. We'll have lots of curly brackets with this multiple if-else if statement. So if that is the case, that total is less than $50, our variable ship cost will be $4.99. Again, no dollar sign, just our decimal number. Okay, if that condition is false, we want to check for another condition. So we'll do else if, and remember, if you have an if statement, you have to have a condition. That's a big mistake that often I'll see students do an else if statement and just have some code without doing another condition. If you see if, you have to have a condition. Okay, so I'll do total greater than or equal to 50 and total less than 100. In that case, our ship cost is going to be $5.99. Now, like I said, there were other ways that we could have written this. We could have said, instead of greater than or equal to 50, we could have said greater than $49.99 and left off the equal sign. Or we could have done over here, we could have said total is less than or equal to $99.99. So it's all about how you write your condition on how your code will function. Now, if this is true, then our shipping cost is this amount. If this is true, our shipping cost is this amount. We need another condition for our $7.99 amount. Else if total is greater than or equal to 100 and total is less than 150, then ship cost is going to equal $7.99. Okay? So remember, with our ands, both of these conditions have to be true in order for this code to execute. Here, both of these conditions will have to be true before this code executes. Okay, so that gets us there. If it's greater than 150, then shipping is going to be free. So I'll just say else. I don't need another condition necessarily. This is just going to capture everything else. We'll say ship cost is 0. Okay, so that does things, but it doesn't have any output for the user. We have input, we have some processing, but we don't have any output. So let's give some output. We want to print in this paragraph element. To add text to this paragraph element, we first have to get to this paragraph element. And one of the ways that we've learned to do that is with document.getElementById. The ID for this paragraph is para. Oh, also, I've tried to avoid doing this, but you can use single quotations just like you use double quotations. So if you see me using double or single quotations, either way is fine. It's just a personal preference. Sometimes I hit this and sometimes I hit this, okay? So I've been trying to use double just to stay consistent, but either way works. Okay, so remember, document.getElementById just gets us to the whole element. If we want to change something about we want to change what's inside that, like effectively changing the text of this paragraph element, we have to do .enter.html. And then you're just assigning that a value. Once you get to this object, you can assign it a value with the equal sign. Okay, so let's do the shipping cost for, and I'm going to put my $sign there, total, let me stretch my browser, okay, is $sign concatenated with ship cost. Okay, so the new thing, so let's say they purchased something above $150. The shipping cost for $150 is 0. That's what it'll print. Hopefully you have a firm grasp on that concatenation already. If not, go back and review some of those previous videos. Okay, we need to think of this function, because here's our opening curly bracket, here's our closing curly bracket, as a bundle of code in and of itself. It's separate from the rest of our web page, and that code does not execute until we call it. Okay, so we've called it with event listeners, and the event is clicking this button. Okay, so we have to get to the button. We'll use document.getElementById button. We don't have to do enter HTML. We're not changing any of the text on the button. We are adding an event listener. Remember, the first parameter in our add event listener function is the event, in this case click, but later we'll learn other events like load, calc, ship, and false. Okay, So this code should work. Let's test it in the browser. So I'm going to test all these different numbers, and I want you to as well. Once you create more complex programs, one of the most important part of developing that is testing your code. So we're going to test it several ways. So I'm going to start with enter 150, and my shipping cost is 0. I'm going to enter $149.99. Shipping cost is $7.99, and that's correct according to my table over here. Let's try $100. Still $7.99. Let's try $99.99. $5.99. That's correct. If we try 50, we should get $5.99 as well. We do. Let's try $49.99, and we get $4.99, which is correct. And let's do a penny, and we still get $4.99. Okay, so make sure you test to make sure it works. Okay, now for your challenge. Your challenge is going to be using lettergrade.html, which is already in your Google Drive. If you don't see it, email me. And we'll create a function called display letter. The goal of this is for the user to enter a numeric value between 0 and 100. We'll have a variable called letter, but we're not going to initially assign it a value. And based on the number that the user entered, you're going to tell the user if they earned an A, a B, a C, or a D. Okay? According to our grading scale, according to the school's grading scale. Okay, so let's test this out. This is what it looks like if it works. If we enter grade and we make 100, you earned an A. If we enter a 90, you earned an A. If we enter an 89, you earned a B. If you enter an 80, you earned a B. If you earned a 79, C. If you earn a 70, C. If you earn a 69, D. If you earn a 65, D. If you earn a 64, F. And then, of course, if you enter a 0, you earned an F. Okay? So use an if-else statement to create this output, and email me if you have any questions. Good luck. Happy coding!